Hey everyone, Final Cut Pro Radio TV coming to you live. We've got a lot to talk about. Breaking news this morning, Final Cut Pro 10.4.1 has been announced for next Monday, the first day of NAB. Well, the first weekday of NAB. I got to turn that. I always get that. I always forget to turn my YouTube off, and it's about 10 seconds late. And all of a sudden, I come on talking to myself. So we got a lot to talk about. We have, of course, with us, Patrick Southern from LumaForge, who has perhaps some insight into what's going on with this 10.4.1 update, 10.4.1 update that maybe is not available to the general public yet, or more specifics about it. Hey, Patrick, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, Richard?
Pretty darn good. So we just had you on yesterday, and we didn't talk about, well, we didn't talk about the actual date of release. Been talking about this update for weeks, months on Final Cut Pro Radio that I suspected it was coming out. I have no inside knowledge, of course. And here it is. Apple's pre-announcing an update to Final Cut Pro 10.4. Not like at the Creative Summit, which they announced it. They gave us a preview. What's going on over there at Apple?
That's a great question.
Pre-announcing.
I know. It's like they're actually wanting people to know what they're doing and be transparent. I mean, we also got that that announcement. It wasn't 9 to 5 Mac. What was the website? But we got an update on the Mac Pro, and that it's not a 2018 product, but it's a 2019 product, and got a little insight into the process that they're using to make decisions around what goes into the new Mac Pro. I thought that was pretty intense. We're getting a lot of information before Apple releases a product. We're not necessarily getting details on the new Mac Pro in terms of what its specs are, but we know that they're still developing it, and we know about the new version of Final Cut 10 that's coming out on Monday, which is amazing. I'm very proud of Apple for doing that.
This is a new Apple. I mean, as far as the Final Cut Pro community is concerned, this is new to us. I mean, they did announce, what was that Pro app, photo app they had? What, Aperture?
Aperture, yeah.
They did announce that was going to be end of life 6 months before it was, taken off the market. And they did talk about photos taking its place. But for Final Cut, this is brand new.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Well, so what has to happen is Brad's going to have to go back and re-edit his documentary now, right?
Yeah, he's got to add 10.4.1 to the
and the new Mac Pro.
Talk about how Apple's being a little bit more open and transparent about what they're doing before they do.
And I teased Brad when I had him on Final Cut Pro TV Live, and I teased him. I said, now you realize when you release the documentary, you got to stop editing it. And he just laughed, because it's like I've been working with him. I worked with him the first year, and we were, constantly editing. So changes here, changes there. So what do you know about the Mac Pro? I haven't got a chance to read anything in depth other than Apple talking about the transparency. They wanted the Pro community to know this was not a 2018 product. Now, people have been speculating that, but I've been saying all along, Apple never said 2018. They specifically just said it was not 2017. I just did a tweet this morning, as a matter of fact, about that. Mm-hmm. So what do you know about the Mac Pro? Anything?
Well, I've only had a few minutes to breeze through the article myself, but from what I can gather, there is actually a team, and we actually saw a few months ago some job postings around a creative pro-centric team that they were hiring for. So we've known that this sort of thing had to have been in existence, but they came out and said, yeah, we've got this team of professionals who are helping give direction to how we're going to develop the Mac Pro platform. So they didn't really go into any specifics of, what the Mac Pro is going to be, but we know that it's going to be very focused on meeting the needs of creative professionals. And it's not going to be something that they make just because they want to make it and tell everybody what the public actually wants or needs before the public decides what they want or need. They're actually listening to the wants and needs of the creative professionals. So whatever it's going to be, I think it's going to be something that we're going to be appreciative of, that we're going to enjoy, and that we're going to be happy for. I think.
Well, I have faith in Apple with this stuff. Some people have less faith than I do.
Yeah.
But but they've already announced it's going to be modular last year,
right?
And it's going to be upgradable.
Yes. Well, we just saw an official. The last update of Mac OS had an official use of eGPUs, added support for eGPUs. So I think that there's signs that they want it to be configurable beyond what's just inside the box. They acknowledge that there's a need for external graphics cards now, but I think that that's a sign that they anticipate making this extremely configurable.
So to me, it sounds like it's going to be a mini cheese grater. I mean, what's more configurable than a cheese grater? People love that machine. I did. That's all I bought. You know, I bought cheese. I bought the G5 version, then I got the Power PC version, and then I got the Intel version. That was a great machine. I don't expect it to be that big or actually look like one, but I mean, the configurability of that machine was fantastic. Hard drives, memory, graphics cards, other PCIe cards, in and out, no problem whatsoever. So,
yeah, you know, I don't know about you, but the configurations I had always had like a good foot or two of cubic space that was just empty.
Right, exactly.
So I think that we can probably anticipate that the form factor will be a lot more compact.
Yes,
on the new Mac Pros. That would be my guess. And who's to say? Maybe it'll be the sort of thing where maybe your chassis takes up more space as you add new stuff, right? Maybe the reason we've got eGPUs is maybe they're going to attach things, you know, onto the, you know, who knows? Maybe it'll look like Minecraft.
Well, so when I talk to people about the expandability of Thunderbolt 3, they always bring up the point, people that use those extended powerful GPUs, that Thunderbolt 3 is not as fast as 16-lane PCIe. Is that what it is?
Probably so. Yeah, the internal connections in a computer are going to be a lot faster than Thunderbolt 3. Yeah.
So they got to have at least the fastest, you know, slot inside the Mac Pro, I would think. Once again, I don't know. At least the 16, you know, lane version, at least one or two of those, and then external Thunderbolt can be used for things that don't require that 16 lane, things that require 4 lanes or 8 lanes, and that can be expanded, I would think, anyway.
You would think, yeah.
Because you don't want to make the pros mad. That's one thing you don't want to do. I mean, some of them I like to make mad, but not most of them. The majority of them I'd like to see satisfied.
Well, and you know, I think the fact that they're waiting to make this a 2019 product is indicative of the fact that they want to get it right. They've known that they want to do it for even longer than we've known that they want to do it. And they've been keeping us updated saying, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. We're still working on it. It's still coming. We just want to make sure that it's a product that you're going to like. And I think that's huge.
Absolutely. So one of my favorite things this morning when I got this news, both pieces of news, is that they didn't announce it at NAB, because NAB is already hectic enough.
Yes.
Going around trying to get information about an update the same time NAB is going. Can you imagine? I mean, just LumaForge itself, you guys are super busy.
Oh my gosh,
you know?
yeah.
So they gave it to us 5 days ahead. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. We got 5 days to digest it and dig into details, get our questions ready for the Final Cut Pro team at the FCP Exchange, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna be under the gun with some questions anyway. I don't know if they'll answer the Mac Pro questions, probably not, but I know what they're going to be showing us for Final Cut Pro.
You know, I'm not quite sure what they would be showing us with the Mac with the Final Cut Pro and the Mac platform at NAB. What would Apple have to talk about?
They've already presented it at LACPUG in January. They have nothing left to say. So the curious thing. So let's talk about the ProRes RAW, and there's 2 flavors of that.
Yeah,
it's regular and HQ.
HQ, yeah. I thought that was pretty outstanding. And it's interesting too. We talked briefly about the fact that it's smaller than ProRes Quad 4, which is surprising and not at the same time, because if you think about Red Code RAW is a good bit smaller than most flavors of ProRes, even at its lower compression rates. So if they're using a different method of compression than standard ProRes, if they're using like a wavelet compression similar to Reds or You know, even what's funny is Cinema DNG RAW at 4:1 is smaller than ProRes Quad 4. So it doesn't surprise me that ProRes RAW is going to be smaller than ProRes Quad 4. But I am excited for it as a capture medium and as an editing medium. What I'm curious to see, and what I'm guessing is the case, is that they've developed this specifically to play back well on the Mac platform and within Final Cut Pro 10. So my guess is we're going to have better performance with ProRes RAW than we do with Red Code RAW, which is probably their entire point of creating the platform.
Gotcha. That makes complete sense.
Yeah. If I were to read the tea leaves, you know, it looks like, you know, we've had Red Code RAW, we've had Cinema DNG that's been adopted by Adobe and Blackmagic, and we've had what other flavors of RAW have we had? I guess those are the primary, and then Sony's come up with their own version of RAW. But when Apple says, hey, we've got a version of ProRes that is RAW, and we don't make a camera for capturing, that means now we've got a format that already DJI and Atomos are like immediately supporting this format. So you're going to be able to record day one, right? You're going to be able to update your Sumo or your Shogun or whatever you have, and be able to immediately start recording in ProRes RAW right off of whatever camera you have.
So that answers my question that I had yesterday. We had one of these events yesterday, not knowing this announcement was coming out today. And I've been questioning since I interviewed Noah Cadner from FCP Works a couple of weeks ago on Final Cut Pro Radio. I said, what is Atomos coming to FCP Exchange for? Because FCP Exchange is exclusive Final Cut Pro stuff.
Yeah.
And he, of course, we didn't talk specifics, but my guess was there was some announcement having to do with Final Cut Pro, and here it is.
Now we know, yeah. I'm really bummed that it's not a pizza button within Final Cut Pro 10. I was really hoping.
We talked about yesterday.
You have those Pizza Hut shoes now. You can press a button on your shoe and it'll order your pizza. Why can't I do it in Final Cut? That's all I'm asking.
Absolutely.
That's the update I think we all really needed. But
well, I like a cappuccino maker myself, but we all have our own list of things.
And that's why the Final Cut 10 team won't ever be able to satisfy all of their user base, because we all have diverse needs. You want a cappuccino maker. I want to order pizza.
Exactly. Well, it depends on what kind of pizza. I mean, that's might be a consideration.
Well, fair enough.
So that's interesting. So so I know the ProRes RAW is less than the Quad 4. What about the HQ? Where does that fit in data rate size? Do you know?
I have no idea. You have as much information available to you as I do in terms of the bit rates and everything else. I was kind of taken aback by the fact that there were two versions. My guess, Richard, would be that one is similar to maybe like a 4 or 5 to 1 compression ratio, and that the other one's closer to maybe a 3 or a 2, or maybe the difference is more drastic. Maybe it's closer to a 7 or 8 for the regular and a 3 or a 4 for the HQ. My guess would be that the HQ is higher than ProRes Quad 4, but maybe not higher than ProRes Quad 4 XQ.
Well, I'm thinking that these new flavors are just a more advanced compression codec. And since, the regular ProRes Quad 4 is years old, so is the HQ, right? They're both years old. So this is a newer, like H.265 version.
Well, I don't think that this is at all the same kind of ProRes we've seen in the past. The previous ProRes is an all-I variable bitrate codec. And I think that the fact that this is ProRes RAW says to me that we're keeping metadata from the camera. And that's the thing that has me. If it is actually a RAW format, then somehow you're going to retain things like ISO and that sort of information, color balance through the pipeline. And I don't know how you're going to do that, whether you're going to have to connect via HDMI or SDI, if there's a certain variation of SDI that will carry that signal. And, what sorts of things do you have to work with camera manufacturers to get that sort of information? Or maybe ProRes RAW will not be carrying any of that sort of information and is really more about dynamic range and not writing any specific metadata to the footage as it's being written to the codec.
This is exactly why we have you on, for information like that. Since you work with these kind of pipelines all the time, day in and day out at LumaForge, this is exactly, that's great information. I never thought about the metadata aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, raw really means that you're not baking in your ISO, you're not baking in your color balance, you're not baking in any of that information. You're leaving that flexible. So if ProRes RAW is truly a raw format, it will have to have some sort of metadata variability.
Gotcha. Now, Chuck Braverman in the chat asked a great question. Where is the Pro display? Now,
well, I've got this great LG display right here.
Well, I have one. My LG is right there. It's a 34-inch, 21:9 aspect ratio, and I love it.
Yeah, I'm guessing he means an Apple Pro display.
Yeah, that's the Apple Pro display. Now, the interesting thing is, because Apple did announce a Pro display when they announced the Mac Pro a year ago.
Oh, did they?
Yes, they did, with that small group of people. However, somebody told me, was it yesterday in the chat, that Apple has rescinded on that now? So I haven't seen any absolute article about that, but somebody said that they've stepped back about the Pro display because they didn't announce it today. But they did talk about it. They did talk about it last year. So that's a great question from Chuck. I'm not going to buy an Apple display. I'll be honest with you. I know it's going to be very expensive, and I don't need it. I don't need that. My LG is fine.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't feel the need for an Apple Pro display either. It was nice to have the cinema displays for a while, but to be frank, their partnership with LG a few years ago, I think worked out pretty well. There are any number of displays that work great, and in fact, I'm very satisfied with the display I have built into my my iMac Pro. I don't really feel the need for any additional. If I have an additional display, I mean, I've got a 55-inch LG E7 hanging on the wall for HDR. So
right, exactly. So Eric Emmerich in the chat says the white paper, the ProRes RAW white paper is up, but he can't post the link. Well, yeah, but you can go to FCPX.tv and I have it linked there.
Well, I'm going to go right there right now because let's get some good information on this thing.
There you go. I updated the website this morning.
Yeah. All right. Let's see.
Didn't I? Yes, it's right there. The link's there. FCPX.tv. I have a whole, it's all about the first couple of lines. The paragraphs are all about NAB. And now, of course, this great announcement. I have a link to the Apple article, the 10.4.1, and also the Apple's ProRes RAW white paper.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking at the white paper right now, and it's already talking about Bayer patterns and conventional RGB, demosaicing. So it looks like possibly, based on just this brief overview, okay, it looks like the decode and demosaicing, debayering process actually happens in your application as opposed to within the codec. All right, let's look at our data rates. Uncompressed 12-bit RAW is pretty high up there. ProRes RAW HQ is also smaller than ProRes Quad 4. So both ProRes RAW and ProRes RAW HQ are smaller than ProRes Quad 4. And actually ProRes RAW is smaller than ProRes 422 HQ, and just variably, it can either be smaller or greater than ProRes 422 depending on the content of the image.
There you go. So yeah, so there's the ProRes RAW white paper. I have it linked off my, like I said, off the main page at fcpx.tv. I'll be updating that constantly with information about NAB and any videos and live things that we do.
Oh my gosh, Richard. What? I'm just seeing in the white paper, it says that ProRes RAW HQ and ProRes RAW, the number of streams you can play back varies significantly between playing better quality and better performance. And if the demosaicing is happening within the application, that means that you're getting a different debayer and demosaicing when you're in better performance than when you're in better quality. So your Final Cut is on the fly. It looks like Final Cut is on the fly doing the demosaicing and debayering, and you can play up to if you play ProRes RAW, not RAW HQ, but I don't know exactly their benchmark here, but if you can play 3 streams in better quality, you can play 15 streams at better performance.
Wow.
In this graph that they've got. I need to look more into what they're using, and also to be honest, need to do some benchmarks on a jellyfish as soon as this becomes available.
Absolutely. Well, they've announced it for next Monday, right? Monday morning.
I'm not going to have time until after NAB to do.
Oh, you can get up.
Testing.
You can get up early. Get your LumaForge stuff done at 6 a.m. Then at 9, you can go ahead and download it.
That would be lovely, Richard. I'll lean on you to do some testing for me in the workflow suite, maybe. Huh?
Well, my testing is not going to be as sophisticated as yours testing would be.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but all of us, if it comes out at 10 o'clock Monday morning, we're going to be at NAB. Who's going to stop going to NAB to download an update? I'm not.
Yeah, well, the other question is, where do we get source footage that's already ProRes RAW? So that's the other question.
That's another great question.
Yeah.
So, people have been talking, people were talking earlier in the year about Apple presenting at NAB on the show floor and stuff. Look, this is much more exciting. Pre-announcing an update at the Monday morning of NAB, the Faster Together stage, FCP Exchange event, the Super Meet is going to have, Brad's going to be there. And of course, the Final Cut Pro Guru Gathering on Monday night. These are all exciting events for Final Cut Pro users at NAB.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
You guys are putting on 3 days of events. A lot of that, over half of it, is Final Cut Pro related. Those events.
And that's not a lot of it's just very neutral editing things that aren't related to a specific NLE. So if you look at the lineup of, Final Cut versus other stuff, there's a lot more Final Cut than there is Premiere or Resolve. So yeah, it's very, very, very exciting for Final Cut 10 users, for Faster Together, for the FCP Exchange, for the Guru Gathering, and for Brad at the Super Meet.
Yes. Is there anything else been announced at the Super Meet for Final Cut Pro? I don't remember.
Brad is it. Brad is the Final Cut Pro 10 representation at the Super Meet for right now. Okay,
because there was something possibly, I guess it didn't come through then.
I think Brad is the representation.
Okay.
Whatever else had been going on, I think fell through. I heard through the grapevine there were some issues with immigration that made Brad the only possible choice for Final Cut 10.
So Brad has his green card.
Yeah, coming from Utah. I know it's kind of a different country.
Yeah,
Utah to Nevada, but we are where we are. So Brad is the Final Cut 10 representation. I know Alex was really wanting Brad to talk a little bit about Premiere during his 10 minutes of presentation time, but I think we need, as much Final Cut 10 as we can in those 10 minutes.
No, absolutely. I think Alex was referring to appeasing perhaps some of the Premiere crowd and just talking about Randy Ubelos in Premiere for a second, but because it's not a Final Cut Pro crowd there. And I would say Final Cut Pro is in the minority at the Super Meet.
Well, maybe, but I will say this: at Lossy Pug, I go to Lossy Pug month after month, and the crowd that makes up the Super Meet is typically, the Super Meet is the meetup of all of the CPugs of the CPug network. So it's
right,
Bossy Pug, Lossy Pug,
gotcha,
Chai Pug. So basically, the Super Meet is a place that. Sorry, hold on just a second.
Well, while you're saying that,
I'm locking my door. I keep getting interrupted.
There you go. Don't they know you're doing something important, more important than working there?
Well, they're just showing off my edit bay time and time again. So I'm locking the door so that we don't get interrupted any further.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that there might be more Final Cut Pro 10 users in that crowd than one might anticipate, because at Lossy Pug, there's a good third to two-thirds of the audience that are Final Cut 10 users. Okay.
I just presume there'd be mostly Premiere users there, because it seemed like last year, well, there was a lot of Premiere stuff happening on stage last year.
Oh, well, that's not surprising per se.
And Resolve, that's the other one. Resolve and Premiere, I would think those numbers would be larger than the Final Cut Pro user numbers at the Super Meet. That's
a possibility. That's a possibility. I don't know that representation on stage is necessarily indicative of what the audience is.
You're absolutely correct. And since you go to those meetings, I believe you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it may have more to do, honestly, with just finding enough people to represent Final Cut 10. You know, it was hard enough to get just Brad onto the Super Meet stage. So,
so Bill Davis in the chat says, Patrick, we need high-speed data access at the Faster Together suite. I guess he means for the ProRes RAW.
Oh man, yeah. Unfortunately, we're recording to Blackmagic HyperDecks, and so far they don't have any support for ProRes RAW. Otherwise, that's what we'd record. I think we're doing ProRes 422, but it sounds like ProRes RAW might actually be a better a better format for us. But unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have the software update necessary inside of the HyperDecks to make that happen.
But we can expect maybe a firmware update at some point, perhaps?
I would hope so. I mean, you know, I think that obviously all of these companies have to go through a licensing process with Apple to make sure that their use of the ProRes codec is up to par. So I think it will probably be over the next year or two that we'll start to see more cameras and recorders recording in ProRes RAW. But it's going to take, you know, a bit of time working between the manufacturers and Apple to make sure that the implementation is correct.
Right. Bill Davis said it's not for data transfer. It's so we can download 10.4.1. That's what he was talking about.
That's what he needs the speed for. Well,
yes,
Bill Davis, we've got one Ethernet connection inside of the the workflow suite and inside of Faster Together. So if you can download, well, no, the problem is that by Monday we're going to be all set up, and that connection is going to be just for presenters. So I guess presenters during their presentation could download Final Cut Pro.
They're going to be distracted. So wait a minute, I'm almost done. Yeah, and then the 15 minutes will be up. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So Bill, at the end of the day on Monday, if you really want, or if you can get it downloaded before the first presentation, then sure, we can get Final Cut Pro 10.4.1 onto the machine you'll be working from either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So what about this closed captioning now in 10.4.1?
Wow.
Tell
yeah.
But we know about that.
Yeah, I've been wanting closed captioning inside of Final Cut Pro 10 for a while now, especially because it's been a deliverable that we've had to make for quite some time. I think it's really exciting, the fact that now we have something that's akin to titles, but it's its own thing, and it has its own role. And in fact, I believe they're adding it to the roles portion of the timeline index, which means that theoretically, if you've got sub roles of subtitles, you would be able to change the order in which they're stacked. And it looks like, have you seen the images? Let me see if I can pull up the images of the implementation real quick. It looks like with the subtitles, if you look into the picture, it looks like they've got their own lane. I'm looking at the picture from the website right now, and it looks like there's a lane that says English CEA 608, which is a closed caption standard. So it looks like you might have multiple roles, and there is its own lane. So if you've got the ability to show or hide a specific role, then you might be able to show or hide your subtitles. And it looks like they've got connection points very similar to normal titles. So if you move a clip around, your closed caption should be able to go. Yeah, there you go.
So is that's the screenshot you're talking about?
That's the screenshot I'm talking about. Yeah. If you, Richard, do you have
see if I can
the
make it
ability
bigger.
to scroll in?
Let me see. There you go. How's that?
Yeah, that's better. Scroll down a little bit, and you'll see that little purple rectangle there. It looks like there's kind of like a lighter gray area that it sits in, that's kind of up and up to, by itself there.
Right. I see that. Yeah, it says CEA 608, you said?
Yes, which is a closed caption standard, which, begs the question, how many different closed caption standards are they going to support? In language, you'll see there's a little drop-down menu next to language. So it looks like you've got the ability to set up multiple languages. And if I know anything about how Apple operates in Final Cut 10, my guess would be that, how you've got the ability to export multi-track QuickTimes?
Right.
I would guess that you've got the ability to determine which versions of the closed captions you're going to export with your file on on the share menu.
Right. Right. Wow.
Yeah, and it also looks like you've got buttons to pop back and forth between each set of closed captions. So each caption has its own next little set, it looks like.
So what is they talked about the captions as staying with the files or traveling with the files.
Right.
So that's like metadata that travels with the files. Is that just inside of Final Cut, or is that the QuickTime file? Do you know?
Well, I think what they're talking about is that it's a connected clip, right? So inside of Final Cut 10, if you've got an interview byte and you need to move it, the captions for that byte will move with it within the timeline, I think is what they're talking about.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
So we have all these third parties doing captioning now, and now we have Apple doing some kind of captioning. I'm not sure how they all interact yet. You might know a little more.
Well, I mean, I would guess, you know, if I were a betting man, it looks like we've got an implementation inside of the timeline, but they haven't said anything about how they're sourcing captions. So my guess is that things like Transcriptive and Lumberjack Builder and Scribe-O-Matic, they're still going to have their place, right? Because you still need a way to generate captions in mass. And I don't think that Final Cut 10 is going to become, you know, an in-mass captioning tool. You know, I don't think everyone's going to have to add all of their own captions in their timeline little by little by little. I think they're going to want to have a way to use some sort of speech detection service to get as many captions as they can as quickly as they can. So I don't think that anything has been Sherlocked by this update.
Oh, that's good. That's good, because with all of these products, getting the caption file is the first step. Whether you pay somebody to do it, whether you do it by hand, the first step is you have to get a caption file.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you absolutely do. But, you know, I think that, for example, Lumberjack Builder, you know, you've got the ability to do a paper cut just based on text. You're able to go into Builder and say, hey, let's grab this byte and this byte and this byte just by reading. And then you create a Final Cut 10 timeline from that. My guess is that tools like that are still going to be useful. You can do your paper cut, have your producer do your paper cut and send it to Final Cut. And,
right.
Know, if there's a new version of Final Cut 10 XML, maybe that'll bring the captions along so that, you know, in your timeline, you've actually got the ability to have those closed captions right there as you're editing.
Well, doing a paper cut is really attractive to me, especially if you're doing a long form documentary with 20 hours of material. You can do a rough cut just by selecting the text pieces that you want, and then of course fine tune them afterwards and cover them up with B-roll. But I love the idea of doing a paper cut by selecting text.
Yeah. Have you seen Philip Hodgett's Lumberjack Builder presentation? I
have seen it. I talked to Philip last year. I interviewed him on Final Cut Pro Radio, and we were talking about it. That was, you know, 6 months ago or 5 months ago. So that was right before the FCPX Creative Summit. So at that point, I was excited about it. Can't wait to see it at NAB. Yeah.
Well, and Philip's going to be talking about it Monday evening. He's the last presentation of the day before FCP Exchange at the Faster Together stage. So if you want to see Builder in its current state, make sure to come by, you know, the Faster Together stage at the end of the day on Monday.
So one of the things I'm going to be doing at NAB is I'm going to be doing live behind the scenes updates and live interviews. One of the first things I'm going to do is see how long it takes me to run from Faster Together up to the FCP Exchange. So I can tell people that it takes a certain amount of minutes so they don't have to worry about leaving early.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to run to the Guru Gathering. That's a little distance, but perhaps walk there.
Well, you know, did you see Michael Ciani was demoing a new FreeFly Movi for iPhone over at Panavision?
I did see that. I did see it. I saw it on Twitter, I guess.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter as well. So maybe, Richard, you could get one of those Movi FreeFly systems for the iPhone and just have a video of you running from Faster Together up to FCP Exchange. And you know, I'd love to see a stopwatch, you know, in the video, if possible.
Exactly.
Do you think you can do that?
Well, I misspoke. What I meant was I'm going to jump on Bill Davis's back. He's going to run.
Oh!
And I'm going to be filming the entire time, and I'll see how long it takes. So
okay, so it's really up to Bill Davis.
Absolutely.
It's too bad you can't just, you know, Tony's got his DJI drone that's going to fly him everywhere. It's too bad you don't have one of those that can fly you from Faster Together up to FCP Exchange.
Well, I want to let people know how long it's going to take so they can estimate their
realistically. So it's not fair.
Yeah.
For the helicopter, and everybody will be riding up on Bill. Everybody will be using Bill Davis's back as a mode of transportation.
Yes, that's one of the things he's hired for LumaForge, right? Taxi service. He doesn't do anything else.
Yeah, you know, I tried to convince Brad that he needed to be the taxi service for everybody to the pepper mill, but he didn't seem excited about that.
That's because his car's too small. We can probably fit a couple people on the roof if they hold on tight.
I think that's probably a great idea. Yeah, or you know, we can have them go Marty McFly and hold on to the back of his car on skateboards, and
there you go.
Get there that way.
That'll be perfect. Absolutely. So this is exciting for you know, a very exciting NAB Final Cut Pro event.
Oh
now,
my gosh.
This is just like the Creative Summit has been exciting the last couple of years, and they've introduced things. They're setting a precedent. So this is the one problem. They're setting a precedent. I mean, last year they announced 2 million. That was a nice surprise. Unexpected. I didn't know it was coming. Oh, by the way, they have announced 2.5 million.
Have they?
Yes, they did. In the press release, absolutely 2.5 million. That's 500,000 new seats in 1 year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's quite a jump.
That is quite a jump. Either their reporting methods have changed or they've gotten a lot more users within a year's time.
No, I think they got a lot more users because they use the exact same terminology, seats. 2.5 million seats. That's official from Apple, yeah.
I wonder if that's because of the 10.3 release that came out a little bit ago, and people are seeing, oh, now the color tools have been added. Oh, this has been added, and now it's a viable product for what I'm doing.
Sure.
We've known that it's been viable for a long time.
Well, of course.
You know, I think that as they're adding these features, people are saying, yeah, this makes sense for me.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's absolutely what it is. And the thing about Apple is traditionally they're conservative with their numbers.
Yeah.
They're not one of these people that's blow them way up and have all these ifs, ands, or buts involved. They're conservative. They're 2.5 million seats. You know, that could be 3 million actual users. Who knows? But 2.5 is a nice number, and 500,000 more from 1 year ago.
The real question, Richard, is how many of those seats are Apple IDs and how many are additional installs based on the same Apple ID? You know,
I think they probably, I don't think they're counting additional installs on a single Apple ID. I presume maybe. I mean, when you go to a college or something, obviously they're going to have multiple seats installed. So they would be counted as individual ones, but I don't even know if they even use them. But anyway, 2.5 sounds great.
It does sound great. It really does. I'm really excited for NAB this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited that they made this announcement today as opposed to waiting until NAB.
Oh my God. So absolutely.
You know, in the past, we'd wait until 6 months after an event like this to find out what happened at the event. And now we know 5 days before the event, what's going to happen at the event.
Right. We can decompress. We can investigate further. We can, you know, whatever. I mean, one thing that people are saying is, where's the bug fixes? Apple doesn't announce their bug fixes at a press release.
Right.
That would be ridiculous.
Oh, I'm sure that there are plenty of bug fixes.
Absolutely. There's plenty of bug fixes. I'm sure that most of hopefully all the major bugs are fixed. Not major, but I mean, the ones people have been bringing up on Twitter, I'm sure they're going to be fixed. I mean, that's nothing to talk about at a press release, though. So they're just talking about the new features.
Yeah.
It was funny because I was on Twitter this morning and talking about a possibility of a Mac Pro at NAB. And I said, I think it's coming. I don't know if it's coming in 2018, but I did say, I do think there's going to be a Final Cut Pro update and not just a bug fix. Oh no, that means it needs to be a full number or whatever people said. I said, no, I'm talking about a point number. I'm talking about features with a dot release. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So,
well, and this is not the first time Apple's done that either. You know,
it is not. It absolutely is not.
I think it was 10.03, 10.06, and 10.09.
Yes.
all had features that had been added that were pretty major.
Yeah, 03 had multicam.
Yeah. Well, in 10.1 added libraries. 10.2, I think, was the one where we added 3D text. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. I don't use it. I still don't use it that much, but I appreciate. No. Look. The thing about 3D text is this. I always said it. That's really a motion feature to me. I don't mind it being there, but there's other things that were more important in that release than 3D text to me, like performance increase. So anyway, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
But 10.1 and 10.3 and 10.4 have all had major features added to them, right? We got, with 10.3, we had the entire revamp of the interface and the addition of audio lanes and the complete reconfiguration of how audio worked inside of Final Cut Pro 10.
Right.
And in 10.4, we had all of these huge color tools, and we had 360 VR built in. So those are like game changing in terms of the way that the application behaves, period. So having features added into the application on a point release is not unexpected. It's, in fact, been the case in the past. It's just that these larger updates like 10.4 have huge things that are, require big under the hood changes. Right.
Well, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, and 4 are full number updates.
Right.
So they all obviously are going to have features, but the 10.4.1, we didn't have that with 10.3. We didn't have all the point updates for 10.3. I think there were 4 of them. All of them were bug fix maintenance updates.
They were.
That's what people were perhaps concerned about, that we didn't see one in 4 months. And my speculation, when it got to be like end of February, March, I said, if we don't see one in March, I said, I think they're saving it for NAB. And that's exactly what happened. So Bill Davis pointed out that there is a major article over at TechCrunch on the MacPro.
That's the one I was reading. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty darn interesting. This is an interview with Apple itself. So I'll put that up on FCPX.tv as soon as I get finished this chat. Man, I thought yesterday's event went really well. We had like 7 people. Ronnie Corton stopped in. Sam stopped in for a minute or two. Alex Goldman was chatting away in the chat. He took over the chat. He's the chat meister. So there's a real great article over there. Detailing from Apple, directly from Apple, not speculation, details on the Mac Pro. So that's pretty cool.
That is really cool. I'm really excited.
But like I said, I know you're glad they did this on today and rather than Monday morning.
Yeah. Now I can't get my hands on ProRes RAW fast enough. I can't wait to have it on a machine where I can actually do some testing, play around with it.
Absolutely.
And frankly, as soon as we're done here, I think I'm going to go and read the white paper 2 or 3 times in a row so I understand what's going on.
Well, do you think anybody at Faster Together is going to be talking about 10.4.1? Maybe Mark Spencer, Steve Martin might have a version by
then. Who knows? Steve might discuss it. I have no indication that is in his plans, but knowing Steve, it's not unlike him to talk about new features. Like, my guess is we'll have Ripple training up about 10.4.1 tomorrow.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, they'll have the tutorials on the new features maybe today.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be typical.
My guess is the fact that Atomos is presenting on Monday means that we're going to get some talk about 10.4.1 by Atomos. I can only assume.
Absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely. And I would hope that that our presenters have the chance to play with 10.4.1 before they present, but who knows? We'll see what happens when we get there.
So your schedule is up at fastertogether.com.
Faster
schedule's up. And even though they're not listed, there are lunch breaks. Are they an hour?
Well, that's a good question. The lunch break is whenever you decide that you're bored with the presentation. I've got a lunch break for our crew,
Well, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
It's about an hour-long lunch break. I guess you could take a 30-minute lunch after Michael Cioni's presentation. We've got about a 30-minute break there. But also knowing Michael, he'll probably fill up that 30 minutes with amazing content, and you'll want to stay glued in your seat because Michael's an amazing presenter. So
he absolutely is. And Michael's been a advocate for Final Cut Pro 10 for years and years and years, you know, as we have been as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, our hope is that people spend time in the Faster Together stage and the workflow suite and go back and forth and take lunch when they feel like they want to take lunch. We do have a designated time for our crew. I don't remember what times those are off the top of my head.
Okay.
But, you know, yeah, there are a few breaks in the schedule here and there just so that, you know, everybody has time to ruminate on everything that they've heard, and so that people don't have brain explosions, you know, that sort of thing.
Right. Right. So it's really great this year because Faster Together is here and the workflow suite is right next door. So even if you're not going to the exact Faster Together session, you can hang out in the workflow suite. It's going to be a hangout area for Final Cut Pro people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big thing too is if you have a presenter that you really liked, I'm encouraging all of our presenters to use the workflow space as a place to answer questions. So if you've got questions after a session, you know, the idea would be to follow over to the workflow suite and be able to discuss with your favorite presenter, maybe things that they didn't even talk about.
Exactly. And I'll be doing some live streaming from the workflow suite, interviewing people that are there, you know, going in and out of the Faster Together stage. So if I have internet, I'm not guaranteeing that I have internet down there. I have no idea. But I have the cell phone internet, which worked last year. Hopefully I can use that again. If not, I'll record and then post, you know, an hour later, I'll go somewhere and upload things. Right. And you can see that on this YouTube channel, Richard Taylor TV YouTube channel. That's the best place to subscribe, and you'll get notified immediately when we go live, just like today. This was unexpected. As I told you off the air, I said, I didn't even tear down the studio since yesterday. I left it set up, and I was so glad that I did, so I don't have to reset it up, lighting and cameras and microphones and things, because I used the studio for different things, and I didn't have to tear it down. I mean, it was already set up. It didn't have to set it up. It's already, you know, which was fantastic. But you know, Thursday is an odd day for Apple to announce something for Monday. I'm glad, but, you know.
Maybe it was just ready today. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm thankful for it. You know, whatever the reason is, I'm thankful that we have it today.
Absolutely. Gives us all these days to go figure it out, to go figure, you know, dig through whatever little morsels we can get of, you know, information. I mean, the MacPro events as well. I mean, the MacPro article as well. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Final Cut Pro. And I was going to say something else about Faster Together. Oh, this is what I guess. So there is going to be a LumaForge after party, right?
Yes.
Wednesday night. However, it's not going to be made public. There's nobody's going to announce it publicly. You have to come to the workflow suite to find out where the after party is.
That is correct. You have to go to the workflow suite to find out where the party will be. And you have to be nice to the people in the workflow suite as you ask them where it's going to be, you know.
Well, one person that's going to be there is Ronnie Cortins, right?
Well, I think so. Yeah. Well, I don't know why Ronnie wouldn't be there.
Well, you know, he's got to do something while I know you guys brought him over from Europe, so he's got to be doing something.
Yeah. The whole LumaForge team should be there.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So I hope there's been no other announcements we missed while we're chatting away.
You know, Richard, I think you and I are going to have to go scrub the internet to see what other announcements there might be. I'm definitely going to do a deep dive into that white paper, and you know, maybe we check back in a little bit from now.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be doing live. You know, it depends on where I am, but I can get live on, you know, on the internet within 15, 20 minutes of any breaking news. This breaking news was fantastic. I just happened to be coming home and I saw it on the Apple news, the news feed, and I saw it on Twitter, and then I saw the MacPro one. So it was very easy for me to get set up for today's event. When I'm traveling to NAB, I'm going to be using a combination of the same setup, which right now I'm using a GH5 for broadcast.
Oh, nice.
And the Sennheiser microphone, which is right here. It's probably just out of screen, but I'm also going to be using for more portability. I'll be using an iPhone, a couple of iPhones, and I'll probably still be using the Sennheiser, or I have another SE Electronics boom that I really like the sound of. So yes, exciting times. Finally, Apple's back at NAB in a big way with Final Cut Pro. I mean, do they need a booth on the floor? I don't think so. I mean, if they have one at some point, that's fine. I just don't see it happening in 2018.
Yeah, I feel like generally at NAB and the booths are typically less exciting. Blackmagic's got maybe one of the biggest booths at the entire place, but
right,
in terms of keeping people engaged and excited about what's going on, I can go to the Blackmagic booth for about 20 minutes and then I'm done.
Right.
And I think that Apple has been very strategic and smart about getting involved in these events where there are presentations and constantly new information coming out hour to hour to hour. I personally, I've seen a number of companies that go and do presentations about their product from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and you get 5 or 6 presentations on different aspects of their product, and I don't see any major interest in that. So I think Apple being part of these more varied events makes a lot more sense than having a dedicated booth at which people would, walk in, kick the tires, and then leave.
Right. Plus, if they had a booth on the show floor, it wouldn't just probably be Final Cut Pro. It would be other things too.
Right.
So if they had a new Mac Pro, even then, look, Apple can reach millions of people by themselves just from doing an event.
Yeah,
millions and millions of people. So I just can't see him doing it going forward. I don't, Blackmagic pre-announces stuff a lot of times.
They do.
And other companies pre-announce things. So I'm just, look, both you and I think I'll say this for both of us. I love the Final Cut Pro 10 team. They are the best. Gosh, they are absolutely the best. We really, really appreciate them. And I appreciate that Apple is allowing these pre-announcements, not only for Final Cut Pro 10.4.1, 5 days in advance, which is great. Also coming out and pre-announcing that the Mac Pro will not be out in 2018. It'll be out in 2019. They never promised 2018.
Right.
Not for the Mac Pro. iMac Pro, they said 2017. They got it out in December. So that was accurate. So fastertogether.com is where you go to find out about 3 days of sessions, mostly about Final Cut Pro. I would say over 50% about Final Cut Pro and other post-related events. Now, one thing I forgot to ask you about.
Sure.
What's the status of the grievance booth?
That's a great question that I don't actually know the answer to.
Okay.
I've been so focused on Faster Together that, that's something I think we're still doing. I just don't know where it will live. My guess would be, last I'd heard was SuperMeet and Workflow Suite are your 2 places to get involved.
There you go.
Whether that's still the case or not is up in the air. For me, I don't actually know. But my guess would be Workflow Suite is where you can find that.
But anyway, we'll find out about it. If not before, then we'll find out at Monday morning. What time do you start Monday morning?
Monday morning, we start at, I believe, 10:30. Let me double check.
10:30. That's what I thought. NAB opens up at 10 Monday, and then what's this guy, Sam? What's his name? Sam? Mezzanine.
Yeah. So it's actually not just Sam. We've actually got Gergana as well, who is our head of customer experience. I'm going to just let a cat out of the bag. We have some really exciting stuff for our jellyfish users that's coming. And if you own a jellyfish, are interested in owning a jellyfish, or want to even know what a jellyfish is, come to that presentation, because we've got some really awesome stuff in terms of our product line that's going to be updated, and Gergana is going to tell you all about it.
Excellent. That'd be great. So I'll be sure to interview her when we're there at the for NAB. At some point, I'll grab her. That would be great. Once you get the announcements out. So 2 things. there's going to be a grievance booth somewhere where you can well, somewhere. It might be pop-up. It might pop up here and pop up there. And that's where you can go and complain about anything post-production related. And the LumaForge is going to record it. And somebody will edit these videos down. And at some point, they'll make it out online, I presume, right?
I would presume that that is correct.
And if you want to go to the LumaForge after party, you have to go to the LumaForge workflow suite to find out when and where it's going to be. It's not going to be made public anywhere.
That is correct. Yeah. So if you want to find out where and when, workflow suite at NAB. I did want to give you a heads up. 10:30 is our first presentation on Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday we start at 9:30.
Right.
So 30 minutes after show floor opens, so everybody has time to get back to the back of the South Hall.
And what's your room number? I know you're in the South Hall lower or something. What's the room number?
Yeah, we're in the South Hall, right side, second to last meeting room, S112 LMR.
And it's on the same, that's the same floor that Blackmagic's on, right? Just there at the other end?
They're at the exact opposite end. Yep.
Okay. And you can find a map to the location of the LumaForge Faster Together suite, FCPX.tv. I have a map there. It's, it shows you the whole floor layout. It shows you where Blackmagic is, and it shows you where the suites are, and it shows you where the bathrooms are, which is also important.
That is very important. And you have a map to the FCP Exchange as well there?
The FCP Exchange, no, because they're up with the FMC suite. Oh, I have a general map, a location map of the Super Meet, FCP Exchange, the LumaForge Faster Together, and the Guru Gathering. Yes, that's a general map, but I have a floor map specifically of where Faster Together is, because I didn't know where it was. It's just, so you go to the Blackmagic booth, and that's a good place to start, and then just run down the hall. All
the way down the right side. We're at almost the very back of the South Hall. We're newbies. Exactly. They give us the rooms towards the back. Maybe next year we'll be a little bit closer to the front. But the other thing to note, for those who don't have knowledge of where FCP Exchange is, it's going to be in the South Hall, but there's like a little bridge. I think Bill Davis was mentioning there's like an escalator that goes up to a bridge at the atrium of the South Hall, and there are a bunch of rooms through that hallway, and the FCP Exchange will be there. So the question will be, how fast can you get from the very back of the South Hall to the very front of the South Hall and up the escalator?
Right. Well, that's what we're going to test out before this starts in the morning. I'm going to jump on Bill's back. He's going to piggyback me up, and I'm going to take a camera and film it. I'll have a stopwatch, and we'll figure out how long that takes so people know. That's important information for people to know.
Yeah.
Bill won't mind.
Our last presentation ends at 4:30 on Monday, and FCP Exchange, I believe, begins
5
at
o'clock. 5 to 6:30.
So you've got a good 30 minutes to get from the Faster Together stage all the way up to that area, which my guess is it's going to take about 15 minutes of walking if I were.
So that gives you time for a bathroom break to grab a bottle of water. And also last year there was a line to get into the FCP Exchange. So
you may want to hurry yourself out of the room at the end of the last presentation at the Faster Together stage to get into that line.
So Bill says LMR stands for left, middle, right. How can it be left and right? How can it be left and right?
Well,
aren't they opposite?
I don't actually know. That's a great question.
I thought maybe it meant mezzanine, but apparently that's not what it meant.
Yeah, I don't know. Left, middle, right.
So let's recap, Patrick, for people who are just tuning in. We got a lot of live viewers right now.
Sure.
So Final Cut Pro 10.4.1 was announced by Apple, pre-announced. It's coming out Monday morning.
Correct.
Monday morning. NAB Monday. The key features, the two main new features are captioning and ProRes RAW.
Correct.
So you want to just run over that real quick, what ProRes RAW, what that means to post-production people?
Yeah. So we had talked a little bit earlier on this broadcast about how ProRes RAW basically is going to be somewhere between here, I'll actually bring up the data rates again. It's going to be somewhere between ProRes 422 HQ and ProRes 4444 in terms of data rate, and that's for ProRes RAW HQ. Normal ProRes RAW will live between ProRes 422 and ProRes 422 HQ in terms of data rate. What we do know, based on the little bit we've looked at the white paper, is that there's going to be a debayering. So the actual debayering of the camera's sensor won't take place until you're playing back within the application. So whatever application you're using to play back ProRes RAW, the debayering happens in that application. So Final Cut Pro 10 will be debayering your data within the Final Cut application, as opposed to having the codec do it ahead of time. So that means that when you're doing better performance, say you've got an 8K file and you're playing back in better performance, you're actually getting a full debayer, a full new debayer of the raw data in Final Cut Pro 10 as you're playing back at better quality. So instead of down-resing an existing debayer of a codec, you're actually having the software do the debayer, meaning you're going to have a higher quality image playing back at better quality. And the number of streams that are possible with better quality with ProRes RAW are multiple times more than if you're doing better quality. So better quality, you're going to get you know, maybe 2 or 3 streams going, and you might get up to 15 streams going if you're playing in better performance instead of better quality.
Excellent explanation. That's why I have you on. Now, what about the caption? The new caption features in Final Cut Pro 10.4.1.
Yeah, based on the articles that we have and the images that we've got, it looks as though the captioning happens in the timeline. It looks like there's a new lane. So we've had audio lanes. We now have a captions lane where you can have, it seems like probably multiple kinds of formats of captions along with multiple languages as separate lanes. And you've got the ability to organize those lanes within the timeline index. And if we were going to extrapolate based on what Apple's done in the past, there's going to be a good possibility that when you open that share menu, there's going to be a way to determine which languages and in which formats your subtitles are exported to Vimeo and to YouTube. And if I were to guess, they probably are going to have some sort of way to connect to compressor for creating things like iTunes packages and that sort of a thing.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that motion and compressor are also both going to be updated on Monday.
Yes, that is correct.
And then we had an article from TechCrunch where he talked with Apple directly and said the new Mac Pro is coming out in 2019, not 2018, as some people speculated, but Apple did not say 2018. They just said not 2017. So that's coming out in 2019, confirmed by Apple.
Correct.
And they have a nice article at TechCrunch. I'll have that up on FCPX.tv shortly. Right now, I have the ProRes RAW white paper, which is brand new, and the direct link to the Apple press release talking about Final Cut Pro 10.4.1.
Indeed. Now, interesting bit that I'm finding in the white paper for ProRes, it looks like if you look at Redcode RAW 3:1 export to HEVC 8-bit. So exporting from Redcode RAW to HEVC versus ProRes RAW HQ to HEVC. Exporting ProRes RAW HQ is 6.3 times faster when being transcoded to HEVC than Redcode. It's 1.9 times faster than exporting HEVC from Canon Cinema RAW Lite codecs, and it's 4.1 times faster than exporting Redcode RAW 5:1.
That's excellent. Man, 6 times faster? That's fantastic.
6 times faster at exporting an HEVC deliverable from ProRes RAW HQ than from Redcode RAW 3:1.
Patrick, we're living in the future. These are really exciting times for video editors.
Yeah, they absolutely are. They absolutely are. I'm very excited that we're Final Cut 10 users today, you know?
Oh, I've been that way for a long time. You know, I liked it from the beginning. I understand the limitations, but I liked it from the very beginning. So the new way of editing. All righty. Anything else? I want to thank all the people that are in the chat. Thank the people that are watching. I sure appreciate it. You can follow along youtube.com/Richard Taylor TV, or you can go to FCP Radio or join our Facebook group. That's where the announcements are. On Twitter, the same thing, Richard Taylor TV. That's where I'll announce these live updates. They'll be coming all over NAB. But the big news is already here.
Yeah, that it is.
For Final Cut Pro users, I mean. The big news for Final Cut Pro users.
Yeah, we still have yet to see what's happening with Blackmagic and with Premiere, I think. Well, Premiere might have made some announcements, right?
They usually pre-announce some things. They had a peculiar, somebody said they had a peculiar announcement where some things are coming, but they're not working yet. I thought there was
I think Adobe does that as a sign of good faith that they're still working on this thing, and here's how it will work once it works.
Gotcha.
I think that's kind of their way of approaching things. I'm personally grateful that Final Cut Pro, their team does not put anything out until it works the way they want it to work.
Right. Like the color wheels. Took 6 years. Now they're here.
Now they're here.
Absolutely. Okay, Patrick, I think that's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard.
Unless you have something else.
I don't have anything else. Yeah.
Okay. So I will see you on, I'll be in Sunday at late afternoon. So I'll touch base with everybody at that point.
All right. See you at NAB, Richard.
See you at NAB, Patrick. Thanks, everybody. Right. Thanks for tuning in.